This is Jeopardy! And welcome to Nostalgia, a chronological exploration of every NES game released in North America. I'm your host, Michael Esposito, and joining me are our two contestants.
I'm Sean.
And I'm Joe.
And we have a bit of a special episode today. We've decided to take a what should be a relatively easy game to discuss, Jeopardy on the NES, and we're going to turn it into an actual game of Jeopardy. How do you guys feel about that?
Sounds fun.
It seems too complicated. We're going to fail.
Yeah, I feel like even though this is going to translate really well for us, the listeners at home at some point are going to be like, "What? Why are they talking about this now?" They're like, "Huh?" But
Chapters
we'll see what happens.
are dead.
Yeah, there's no chapters for this one, that's for sure. But there will be a winner, and there will be no prize. I just want to get that out of the way. I have no money to give. We barely make any money on this show to begin with.
It's true.
But one thing I wanted to clear up is that instead of doing our usual like developer things or talking about the music and stuff, we're going to hop around a lot because there's a bunch of different categories that we're going to go through, similar to a real game of Jeopardy. So you're really going to want to listen to the entire episode if you're at all interested in any of this stuff, and I think you'll find some fun things in there too. So you guys ready to play?
Let's do it.
Who goes first?
All right. So I think we'll have, since Sean always introduces himself first, Joe will go first. And Joe, the categories, just so you know, for this round are play the game, trust your mechanic, developing situation, get nostalgic, and I am 8-bit.
Yes, I'll take play the game for 400.
All right, this is play the game for 400. A plan of action or policy designed to achieve a major or overall aim.
Yeah, I got nothing.
All right, we were looking for what is strategy, and that is Webster's definition of strategy. And this would be a great time for us to talk about our strategies when playing Jeopardy here. So, guys, what did you do to best the computers in Jeopardy?
Well, what I did usually is I would only buzz if I was pretty sure I knew, because, like in regular Jeopardy, it does subtract points. And sometimes you'll get the computer to buzz in, and they'll get it wrong. And the way that they do it in this game is they don't, guess something else. They just type in computer gibberish, but with, some of the letters from the actual answer. So it was an interesting way to go about that. I don't know what you guys did. Yeah.
Yeah, I think using that a little bit, if I don't know something, kind of definitely taking advantage of the fact that they will type in parts of the answer, which I think was their way to show oh look, they guessed wrong, but got some of it right. And it's a little doesn't translate exactly to how it would be in real Jeopardy, but it's definitely helps you get answers that you didn't get on your first read of the question.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that I stole from is the James Holzhauser strategy of playing Jeopardy, where you play through the bottom first. So you go for the 500 questions in each category to try to get, to see if you know them and can make the most money off the bat. Because if you get the 1,500 right there, at least in the first round, it's going to be very hard for anybody else to make up the difference.
True, but you could also put yourself in a huge hole. But I guess that's why smart people play this.
Yeah, and that's another thing too. Since we're talking about smart people, how did you guys feel about the questions themselves and the relevancy of this now 30 years later?
I mean, you could definitely feel that it was made in 1988. But I also was impressed or just surprised that they didn't make them all really kind of general categories that would be that kids would always get. There were some specific, they felt like real Jeopardy categories.
Yeah, I would also say that it sort of has it's definitely not as difficult as TV Jeopardy, at least from what I've seen. But it does have a variation in difficulty. Like, you can definitely tell that the $500 question or answer, I guess, is a bit more difficult than the 100. So I think it's got a pretty good balance. And a lot of the categories are timeless. A lot of them aren't, but there's enough here where somebody in 2020 could still play this game.
All right, and so Joe, you still get control of the board because no one answered. So what would you like to pick next?
I'll play the game for 200.
This gambling feature is hidden behind 1 clue in the Jeopardy round and 2 in Double Jeopardy.
Beep.
Sean?
What is Double Jeopardy? Oh.
Ooh, that is wrong.
I just realized it was listed in the question.
Joe, would you like to respond?
Man, I wish I watched more Jeopardy.
And we will move on. We are looking for the Daily Double.
Yes.
The Daily Double, and that gives you the opportunity to wager $1,000 or more, or less, to be honest, if you didn't feel comfortable with the category, as a way to spice up the game, and also a way to like completely dominate the game too. If you're really feeling good about a category, if you have $3,000 to your name, you can risk it all and now jump up to $6,000, which in this kind of game is really going to put you ahead of the computers. So, how did you guys feel? Were the questions tougher with the daily doubles? Did you bet a lot of money? How did that work?
I did so now I'm remembering when you said Double Jeopardy, that's what confused me, because I was confusing Double Jeopardy with Daily Double. But I did a true Daily Double when I actually played the game, which just meant I bet everything, which put me in a substantial lead in the first round, which I thought was very helpful, but also could have terribly screwed me if I happened to get a question that I didn't know.
It's definitely a risk.
And Sean, were you being risky during your daily doubles?
If I was in the lead, I wouldn't bet so much that I could possibly lose the lead. So I tried to make some money, but I didn't go all in like that.
Got it. And for the record, I never went all in either. It's tough because you have to bet the amount of money you want before you ever see the question.
Yeah.
So it's like, no matter how... the categories are just vague enough that I don't feel too confident about the general, like, curriculum that might be involved.
For sure.
Okay, so Joe, you still get to pick another category.
And I'm going to stay with Play the Game for 300.
A class or division of people or things regarded as having particular shared characteristics.
Beep.
Beep.
That is Joe. Joe?
What is a category?
That is correct.
Okay.
What is a category? Okay.
Finally.
And so we've already talked about the varying skill levels of categories, but what were some, can you recall anything that came to mind as like a category that either you particularly were good at or that you avoided? Because I had one category or a recurring theme of just things that start with B or things that start with C. Like you would see that and they would have it for every kind of letter. And I thought that was funny that it seemed kind of just like now we can just do anything, but as long as it starts with this letter, we're covered.
I kind of like those. I usually stayed away from the ones that were definitely more of the time, or ones that were about a certain period, like the 50s. Like I know very little about the culture of the 50s, so I would stray away from those.
Yeah, I noticed that I guess I don't know why I wasn't expecting them to include these little things that are just in Jeopardy all the time, but they would have categories that were the answers always ended up being like a play on words for what the category was called. Which I guess, I don't know why, I just didn't expect this NES game to do that, to be so similar to actual Jeopardy, which is weird in retrospect.
And they would have some interesting ones, too. I mean, there was a whole category on Disney. I don't know if you guys got that one. But that seems very approachable. And then at the same time, you could have right next to it a whole category called, Thick and Thin, which, which is completely, what could that be? And goes through a whole gambit of different things like what is flour, what is thin air. Like it's very tough to tell what those categories are going to be like. So the game keeps you on your toes for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Joe, since you got that one, you're now in the lead with 300, and you get to pick again.
I'm gonna just stick with play the game, keeping us consistent in the chapters here for 500.
This round features a single clue and requires contestants to wager their money before receiving the question.
Beep.
Joe?
What is Final Jeopardy?
You are correct again for 500. And let's talk about that Final Jeopardy, because I think that is the make or break moment, because it gives the computers a huge chance to come back at you if you're not prepared with an answer. So how did you guys feel about the Final Jeopardy compared to the rest of the game?
Well, in one of my games, both of the computers had ended up with negative amounts, so they couldn't even participate. So I ended up just wagering $1 and won anyway. But there was another game where it was actually close. And no, I mean, and especially if you're playing this how it was probably designed to be made, to be played, which is with people. So there's this thing where you'd have to go into the other room and make sure you couldn't see whoever's typing. And but I think it works.
Yeah, I found that really funny, the way that they deal with, like, make sure you don't look at the screen while your other player's typing. I thought that was really funny, because there's just no other way around it. But yeah, in my game, I had a lead in the first round, and it actually ended up being pretty close by the end, though. And Final Jeopardy is what gave me the boost to win. But it is a little bit of, I mean, it's Jeopardy rules, but like a little bit of that gamble of like how much are they going to wager, the person who's closest to me? Like, I want to wager enough that I'll win, but not too much that, hopefully if I get it wrong, I'm still above their score.
Yeah, I had one particular Final Jeopardy where I was in the lead for most of the game and then actually wound up being like 400 under one of the computer players. And so I did the math and everything for like how much it would take me to make sure that like, I can't bet it all, but I also kind of need to, like, how much should I put in and stuff like that. And I did all that. And the computer wound up giving, like, a bogus answer, one of those nonsensical ones. And then, like, also just put in, like, what seemed to be a completely arbitrary amount. Like, had no idea that I was only 400 behind them. So, like, I don't think that the computer cares enough to do the math, so I don't know why we would care. All right, Joe?
I'll actually take Trust Your Mechanic for 500.
Okay, Trust Your Mechanic for 500. This mechanic allows for additional players to join in on the fun of Jeopardy.
Beep.
Sean?
What is multiplayer?
You are correct for 500.
That's right.
And that puts you up from the negative, so you are now at 300.
Nice.
And would you like to talk about the multiplayer? It sounds like neither you or Joe played multiplayer. I know you attempted to with me.
Yeah, we tried to get some kind of net play going, but that didn't end up working out. But I imagine this being, a poor man's Jackbox now, or like I don't know if there is a Jackbox game that's just trivia. They're usually much more goofy with it, but. It's a party game. It's one of the first party games we played.
Yeah, and I think... Go ahead. I was going to say, I think that I was surprised at how... Even though I didn't actually play it multiplayer, I mean, this functions like Jeopardy. I mean, there's a few little bit of, annoyance to it now where you got to type things in and whatnot. But, like, I can't see you playing this with a friend and feeling like, that didn't feel like a good trivia game. Like, if you're playing it with another person, like, it's just trivia. Like, it really just kind of works.
Yeah, me and my fiance did play this game as multiplayer, and I have a couple of interesting observations. And the most interesting, actually, is that this game is technically the first 3-player NES game, because you are able to use controller 1 for both player 1 and 3, but player 2 needs to have a second controller. So if you only have one NES controller in your house, you're like out of luck to play this multiplayer game. Like, it still somehow finds a way to lock you behind it, even though you could theoretically play with just one controller.
Yeah.
That's interesting, because I would have thought that the only reason to do that is to make sure people are still buying a second controller, but didn't the NES come with two controllers? Yeah.
The NES did come with two controllers for the most part, like with the action set and stuff like that. But I imagine, you could buy this console in many different packs. Like there's that pack that came with Rob, and there's that pack that came with the Zapper. So, I mean, I'm sure there was eventually a version sold with just one controller.
Huh.
The Famicom, on the other hand, though, as long as it wasn't the Famicom disk system, the original Famicom, the two controllers always came with it because they were built into the system.
Oh, I see. No plugging.
All right. So, Sean, since you got that one right, you can choose the next category.
Let's do Trust Your Mechanic for 400, Alex.
In a game of real Jeopardy, sometimes this mechanic causes contestants to be unable to answer all questions on the board.
Beep.
Is that a beep?
Okay, that's a beep. What do you got, Joe?
Time limit? What is a time limit?
I'll allow it because I didn't correct you in time.
Okay.
But yes, don't forget to always say what or who. Yes, what is a time limit? Actually, there's no time limit in the NES version of the game, so you're forced to answer every single question in both the first round and Double Jeopardy. How did you guys feel about that? I think that was a little too many questions for one game.
I was kind of feeling that way too. You played with someone else. Maybe if I played with someone else, I would have felt differently. But when I was playing against a computer, there was a point where I was like, come on, please tell me they're going to cut me off at some point before I have to go through all these questions. So you're saying
in a real game of Jeopardy, there's an overall timer that's going on the entire time? I mean, I know it's like, for commercials and everything, but it's like, it's displayed?
Well, it's not displayed, but it resets at the end of each round, but essentially, because they need commercial breaks and stuff like that, there's only a certain amount of time that you get during Single Jeopardy and Double Jeopardy, and so it's very rare that they actually answer all the questions on the board.
Okay, because there are timers within the questions, like you can only buzz in for 10 seconds and you have like a minute to write out your answer.
Right. And those are true in Jeopardy too, although you get significantly less time to answer than you do here on the NES. Can
you imagine if they had to type it out on like an alphabetical keyboard on Real Jeopardy?
I think in Real Jeopardy you get something like 10 seconds, maybe. That even sounds like a lot.
Yeah, but maybe 5.
Yeah, but 45 seconds was very good, because it gives you a generous amount of time. Like, I've never needed the full 45 seconds, but I appreciated that they didn't just think, like, well, you wouldn't need 45, so let's just give, it was better to go over than under on the estimate. And since you got that one, you get to pick the next category. You're leading by, you're 1,200 to 300 for what it's worth.
I'll do Trust Your Mechanic for 3, please.
This mechanic is the only way computer opponents can get a question wrong.
Beep.
Sean?
What is typing nonsense?
That is exactly what I wrote. So yes, you gain that, and you have cut your lead to just being halfway to Joe. It's 1,200 to 600. And we already talked about this, but I thought it was pretty interesting because I couldn't think of a better way for the computers to do this. It was so jarring at first, but then you realize, were they really going to program a bunch of like not so correct answers for them to say? Like, that would have been more difficult.
Okay. I think a better way... Go ahead.
At first, I thought it was just actual randomness, and it wasn't until I saw a couple computers get the wrong answers that I could tell that it was basically playing Hangman or something. But yeah, no, it's kind of clever.
Yeah, I was a little thrown off at first by the fact that parts of the answers were in there. Like, I feel like if they had just done gibberish answers that had nothing to do with it, it'd be like, okay, they got it wrong, but it also doesn't clue me into what the answer might be. But then if you think about it, I guess sometimes that could happen, where, like, the wrong answer is close enough where it sparks, like, oh, this is what it is. But I don't know if it happens so much that there were so many times where they answered the question wrong, but I could just clearly tell what it is from context now. I don't think would have happened if, like, in a real game of Jeopardy. I don't think someone would have tipped me off like that.
Yeah, and I could see if it was like, presidents was the category, and they provided just like a bunch of random chances for them to guess like other U.S. presidents. But you'd have to do that for so many different categories and so many different things that I don't even know how they handle it in future Jeopardy games. Like, I'm sure there's a Jeopardy on PlayStation 1. Like, how does that get handled?
Yeah. Well, I'm not even saying they should have necessarily given them like fake answers to answer, but like instead just have it be complete gibberish with no clues to the real answer in it. You know, I feel like that makes it a little more like real Jeopardy.
Totally. Okay, Sean, you get to pick again.
I'm gonna go off the beaten trail here, and I'm gonna pick Get Nostalgic for 400.
The first game, chronologically, to be removed from the essential games list.
Beep.
Joe?
Because I know this one. What is Excite Bike?
That is correct. Excite Bike was it unanimous? I feel like it was not unanimous.
No, I think it was just 5. Like me and Sam that voted it, and then I immediately regretted it.
Right, and it came off quickly after. Have any of you revisited Excite Bike since episode 5?
I have not, and I never will again. It was just I didn't even vote for it, so
I haven't either. I think I probably did before we took it off, but not since then.
Just to feel better about your decision.
Yes, like yeah, this comes off.
It is still a very impressive game, though, to watch somebody like set a world record on a new track, because that's still happening, believe it or not. So it's like, it's pretty impressive to watch these guys find new ways to break that kind of game. But I personally would just continue to tumble on the way down, and then you have to like watch your character like fall off to the side of the road and then go run over, pick up their bike, and it's like, oh, this is painful.
Oh, man.
Okay, Joe, you could regain control.
You know, I'll go the remaining play the game. I can't remember which one it is, but there's one left,
It is
right?
for 100, yep. Play the game for 100. An icon or figure representing a particular person in video games.
Beep.
Sean?
What is a character?
I'm going to allow it. I was looking specifically for Avatar, but I think this works, and I'm going to allow it because it's basically the same thing in this game, too, because you choose your character, not like based on like their IQ or anything like that, but just on a look for you. But
yeah.
everybody looks super weird in this game, right?
Yeah, you've got like 5 variations with the 3 main like colors of people. There's pink, puke green, and like sort of a weird brown. So I think it covers all of the demographics.
Can I admit something? I didn't even realize that I was able to choose. I guess maybe I hit A too fast and I just picked the first guy that it gave me. Yeah, I thought it was just assigning it to me, but
it says, do you want this character? And you have to keep pressing. Oh no, it's like select different character, and you have to keep pressing yes, and it defaults to no, and then it just cycles through the weird pixel art for that.
I guess I was just too eager to get to it. I had like this cool, quote unquote, cool looking guy with like sunglasses and like his hair was like whipping forward a little bit.
Yeah.
I thought that was just like the general guy that everyone played as.
No, in fact, most people get those 2 nerd-looking people with the glasses and the bad haircuts. It's like, why even include those types of people in your game?
I picked the anchor-looking guy. He looked like he looked like he did TV news.
And I also think it's weird that you can have, like, between you and the computers, multiple people can be the same looking character. They should have, like, crossed that off the options of availability. But that's a whole nother story. Okay, Sean, you got that one, so now you get to pick.
Let's go with developing situation for 200.
The name of the very first Jeopardy video game.
Beep.
Joe?
I'm going to say, what is Jeopardy?
You are correct. It was called Jeopardy.
That's the 200 question.
Yes, that's the $200 question. And funny enough, pretty much most of them are called Jeopardy throughout the like sequels and spin-off section. There's no like
Jeopardy
there's no like subtitles.
Jeopardy Reloaded.
Right. And funny enough, I didn't want to give it away, but this is the very first Jeopardy video game adaptation, this NES game. So that's pretty cool. And Jeopardy, obviously a long-standing game now, but was also popular back then. So I'm sure this was a big win just for like families in general, but also for like parents to pick up the game and be like, oh, finally, some video game that like our kids will learn something. Now, there was apparently a Jeopardy game being developed during like the Atari 2600 times, but that's really strange because at the point that that game was being developed, Trebek wasn't even the host. So it would have been like this really early, like non-popular version of Jeopardy with the old host who I think only did like 2 or 3 seasons.
I didn't even know. I always thought Trebek was the first host of Jeopardy. I didn't know there was someone before him.
Yeah, well, I'll link it in the show notes or something. I'm sure there's like a video I can show of like the first ever episode of Jeopardy, and you can just be like, wow, that doesn't bring the same energy. Okay, so since Joe got that one, Joe, you are leading with 1,800 to 700. Where would you like to go next?
What's left in Trust Your Mechanic?
100 and 200.
I'll take 200.
This mechanic is the only way to answer questions in this NES game.
Beep.
Sean?
What is typing?
Yes. Correct, for 200. You're slowly working your way back to the lead. And I think it's important that we just talk about this because I was thinking about this, and the only other way to really provide responses would have been like a multiple choice style thing. And I think for a game like Jeopardy, that would have really not worked well because it requires like this specific knowledge and the ability to like narrow down, or, you know, they'd probably do like A, B, and C are close, but D is like completely stupid, you know, like they couldn't do it that way. So I think this was the appropriate way to handle this.
I agree.
I fully expected it to be multiple choice, so I was kind of surprised when they allow you to actually input the answers. And I don't know, this is something that we would get into after another question, but did anybody have any like concerns about like typing something slightly wrong or maybe in a different format that it expects? Like, for example, I had a question that was it was the name of Agent 86 from Get Smart's partner, and 86 in the question is in digits, 86. So I knew the answer to it, so I typed in 99, but I typed in 99 and it was incorrect, and the answer was 99 spelled out.
Interesting. Yeah, I want to say that maybe there's a couple ways to do it, like a couple correct answers. I can't confirm that, but I do know that, like, yeah, if you misspell something, even like commonly, like one of the answers that I had was the Blarney Stone, and I forgot to put the E in, and it said that I got the wrong answer. So I'm not really sure what the how lenient it is.
Right. Although the manual does confirm that that there are multiple. Right, for some questions, there are like commonly misspelled words can be accepted as correct, and also for some questions there might be like multiple ways of phrasing. So that was kind of impressive to me too on the NES. If it really is true, I mean, I didn't really experience it because of the 99 thing.
The most important thing there, Joe, too, is that there's a couple of different instances of like rule placements for how you can handle like misspellings and stuff like that. So even things like if the answer was what are fish and chips, you can't do what are chips and fish. You have to do the commonly used like correct version of the answer. Simply just like getting them all like getting everything that should be in the question. Like if you did last name, first name, that wouldn't work either. You have to do first name and last name. But also, it says that you don't have to do spaces, and I wasn't like courageous enough to try that.
That's weird.
But I think that's really strange that they were kind of like spacing between words is optional. It's like right there in the manual. So, you know, things like that are interesting. They do say though, Joe, something that was interesting for your 99 one is that most questions will accept either like Roman numerals, numbers, or spelling out the the number itself. So I thought that was
Right.
weird that it didn't take yours.
Roman
Right, because I saw that
numerals.
afterwards, and I was kind of confused because it definitely just did not accept 99.
Okay, well, who got that one? Was that Joe?
I did.
Sean did.
Okay, Sean, good. Okay, so I did give you the points for that, Sean.
Good.
You are able to pick the next category.
Let's do developing situation for 300.
Like host Alex Trebek, the game developer Rare is not from the USA. Instead of being a Canadian citizen, they reside in this country. We're looking for what is the United Kingdom. You'll remember that Rare was the first third-party developer on the NES with that wasn't from Japan, and they were from the UK, and they brought us Slalom.
Instead of being a Canadian citizen. Okay. That's cute.
Well, because they're alike with Alex Trebek, but instead of being a Canadian citizen, they reside in.
Oh,
a
I
different
see.
country.
Yeah, Alex is. He is Canadian, isn't he?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Sorry, I'm just dishing. I guess I'm secretly revealing with each question that I watch Jeopardy weekly.
I knew that about you. I knew you were a Jeopardy fan.
I did not.
All right, so Sean, you still get to pick.
All right, let's try developing situation for 400.
The number of additional Jeopardy games on the NES.
Beep.
Sean?
What is 2?
That is correct. How did you know
Wow.
I looked at the library and had to make sure I played the correct one.
that? Very good, very good. And do you know the names of the other two?
I don't.
I believe, I'm working from scratch here because I don't have notes, but I believe it is the 25th anniversary edition and the junior edition. So there's a version that,
yes,
Jeopardy theoretically, we'll be a lot better at.
Blue. What is blue?
Now, they're also both developed by Rare as well, so I feel like Rare just racked up the license on Jeopardy and said, we'll just keep spitting these out. How different do you expect those games to be from the one we played today?
Well,
With Jeopardy... Go ahead, Joe.
I was just saying that the 25th anniversary edition, there's not an additional theme to that's different than this. So I just imagine it would be different questions. I don't know what else they would do differently.
Yeah, I feel like that one has to just be Jeopardy 2 for all intents and purposes, or an expansion pack. But with Jeopardy Junior, all I can see is just this almost insultingly easy game. But I don't know. I mean, we'll play it.
Right, and I wonder, will they even change, the characters that you can play as? Will they go that far, or will they just say, those characters are fine. They can
Maybe
just
they'll
pick
be
them again.
babies.
But will they just reuse the same ROM,
all the
but just
assets.
put in new categories?
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be open world Jeopardy.
I've been saying that we need an open world Jeopardy for a long time. Okay, so Sean, that was you. You are only 500 points away from the lead. What would you like to pick?
Let's do developing situation for 500.
Okay, this is to tie. The number of game show games Rare made for the NES. What is a whopping 9?
My God. I never would have got that.
Yeah, same. It would have been a shot in
The same people who made Banjo-Kazooie later on would first make 9 game show games for the NES. That's crazy.
Did they make Double Dare?
They did.
They did. Okay, I remember seeing videos of that before. So it's not even all just similar. It's not like they're oh, we have Jeopardy, we can make other trivia games. It's completely different. I guess there's trivia in Double Dare, right?
Yeah, and to be fair, I mean, Double Dare is definitely a game show, so I did count that in the 9.
Right.
But yeah, there's also the obvious ones too of Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah.
I feel like those two shows, since they air back to back, are also just owned by the same person.
Gotta be.
So they just bought the license for both.
All right, I guess since I retain control,
You do.
I will get nostalgic for 300.
This game's manual had a unique story that we turned into a radio play on the show.
Beep.
Beep.
Ooh, that was Sean by a hair.
What is
Sean?
Scoon?
Yes, you are correct. What is Scoon? Tell me, what else do you remember from that game's manual?
I mean, aside from the story, I remember a bunch of nonsensical names of enemies.
I did mean from the story though, like the general plot. Like, what do you remember?
I remember it was about a warm-hearted pirate who actually, I don't know if it was like as a mercenary or just out of the kindness of his heart, decided to help save the world from an alien invasion. But I remember there being some like bargaining in that story.
Yeah, I thought there was something where like you were being asked to do it, and then even like, or the character or whatever, even the character was kind of like, well, what's in it for me or something like that. Like, other than the world not ending.
And Sean, you played the pirate.
I was the pirate.
Can you give us your best like yar?
Yar.
I think that's exactly how you did it.
Probably.
Okay, so Sean, you are only 200 points away from tying. What do you got?
Let's do trust your mechanic for 100.
This mechanic allows you to change the behavior of your computer opponents.
Beep.
I think that's Sean again.
What is difficulty?
Correct. And we've already talked about the difficulty of the game, but did either one of you modify the difficulty to medium or hard?
I just stuck on medium. I actually didn't try easy or hard.
I did easy first, and I noticed that the time just ended up running out a lot if I didn't do any input. And I think with medium, they were a bit quicker to the draw, and I think they got more answers correct. But I didn't play enough to like get an actual to get a real feel of what was happening.
I was just saying, I wonder if the questions actually get more difficult, or if it's really just like time limits and the AI.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain that it's just time limits and like their ability to like answer questions correctly. Because I didn't try medium, but there is definitely like a jump from easy to hard, where the categories all seemed like relatively the same of what you might see on easy, but the computers were definitely like in control of the game and getting the answers correct a lot more often. Okay, Sean, you keep going.
Let's do developing situation for 100.
The developers of Slalom, RC Pro-Am, and Wizards and Warriors.
Beep.
Sean?
What is rare?
That is correct, and they are the ones we've been talking about this whole time.
I actually couldn't remember either.
Yeah, no, it's fine. And I just think, like, at this point, we've probably exhausted what we were going to say about them, but we've seen these other three games, Slalom, RC Pro-Am, and Wizards and Warriors from them, and now this is our fourth game from Rare, and it kind of feels out of left field, right? But it probably doesn't matter back then.
Yeah, they're all kind of out of left field. They haven't really decided who they are yet. They've made sports games and an adventure / action game, and then this, they haven't really settled into anywhere.
Yeah, it almost feels like back then, like making video games in itself was like a niche, so you didn't have like an additional one within that. Like, oh, I make this kind of game. You're just like, we make video games, and then they have to cast kind of like a wide net.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that, because even if you look at Square's output so far, there's nothing that says we make RPGs, you know? So nobody's trying to lock themselves in, and to be fair, like, I think Rare's approach here of, like, Slalom being a sports game that they partnered with Nintendo on to get, like, the Verse System version going as well in the arcades, and then RC Pro-Am having this, like, multiplayer genre of sports that, I mean, I don't know if you'd consider it a sport game, but like just that racing thing is something that nobody else was doing on the NES, so that's a completely untapped market too. Wizards and Warriors actually feels like the one out of left field for them of the four that we've played.
Yeah, I would say so too, because it is, they're all kind of simulations on something aside from Wizards and Warriors.
And this game is officially tied now, so Sean, as you pick the board, you're both tied at 1,800 apiece.
All right. Let's touch the I Am 8-Bit category for 300.
In Arkanoid, you control a spaceship named This in order to break the alien blocks. An NES accessory of the same name was also released. I knew I had to get a little tricky here for you guys. The name is The Vouse.
The Vouse? I don't remember that at all.
I remember talking about it. I would not have ever remembered that name.
And I thought it was just funny that it had like its own name and that it was a spaceship. And I was like, I just think of that as like the thing in Pong, like it's just a wall that knocks into the ball.
Yeah, it definitely seems like tacked on later. Like, we should make it a spaceship in the manual, even though they already just made the game.
And the accessory also was just like a dial that would allow for more precise, like fast movements than what a D-pad could give you. So that was actually pretty neat.
Yeah, I do. I prefer the dial in games like that. I'm not actually any better at it, but at least I feel like my mistakes are my own more with those.
Right. Okay, Sean, take us through another one.
Let's get nostalgic for 500.
Ooh, big one. This other podcast is sometimes recorded during nostalgia and does not feature the host.
Wait, can you beep during the question?
I think it has to go to Joe because you have to wait until after the question is read.
Oh, that's bullshit.
Those are Jeopardy rules. So, Joe, what is the name?
What is Mike's Without Mike?
That is correct.
Also,
Mike's Without Mike.
Also, I didn't know you knew about that.
Oh, yeah. That's
and we do sometimes call it Off the Mic, too. So it's...
Oh, I didn't know that, actually. So
Yeah,
that's
so
trivia even for me.
We never called it Off the Mic.
It's definitely happened. But Mike deleted all of the evidence, obviously.
For sure.
No, I believe that there is one Mike's Without Mike that did make it to a post show.
Really?
I don't know which episode.
There was one.
I know, but I don't know. There were 3 recorded. I don't have the second one. I only have 1 and 3, so I don't know if you guys did that thing where you just label the pigs 1, 2, 4.
Right, yeah, so you can't find it.
Right. But only Mike's Without Mike 1, I think, has ever made it to a post-show of an episode, and I don't know which episode it is.
We can release 3 on the 50th anniversary of Nostalgia.
Yeah, that sounds fair. If anybody wants to hear more Mike's Without Mike, let us know. I have never listened to one. I'm not allowed to. But I hear Sean is a big fan.
It's a great show.
Mike.
Sean's the creator.
He's a significant individual.
Okay, so Joe, next category.
What do we have left in Trust Your Mechanic? Anything?
They're all
Nothing.
gone.
We only have Get Nostalgic and I Am 8-Bit left.
Then I'll take Get Nostalgic for 200. That's left, right?
That's correct. The 50th and 100th episodes of Nostalgia.
Beep?
I don't.
Oh, Sean's got a beep. Okay, Sean, what do you got?
What are baseball games?
Ooh, so close.
That was 99,
I have to,
right?
100 was Major League Baseball, but 50 was Rygar. So we were looking for what are Rygar
there are 2
and Major
answers.
League Baseball.
I see.
Yes.
I thought they had something in common. Okay.
Yeah.
So be it.
The thing they have in common is that they are anniversary episodes, I guess you could say.
For sure.
All right, so Joe, you are now leading 2,300 to 1,600. Where would you like to go next?
What's left on 8-bit?
Everything
but
but 300.
Then I'll take 200.
King Slender, Starman, and the Amazon are all characters in this fighting game. What is pro wrestling?
Ah, yes.
There were too many options there.
I knew that it was a wrestling game. I just forgot which one.
And that's fair, because I didn't want to say in this wrestling game, but actually now that I'm thinking about it, I probably should have, because we played 4. So
Yeah.
it probably should have been narrowed down even further. But we haven't even really had a fighting game per se either. So I guess we're kind of like in this weird limbo of games where we got like a bunch of wrestling all at once, and then nobody dared make another one because those ones all came out so terrible. Okay, Joe?
I'm going to do, forgive me if this is already taken, Get Nostalgic for 500.
Yes,
That's
it is
already
taken.
taken.
Only
Oh.
100 is left.
Oh, wow. What did I miss? Then I'll do Get Nostalgic
got
for
that one right.
100.
That's funny. Okay, Get Nostalgic for 100. Usually recorded at the end of every podcast. Plays after the end song.
Beep.
Beep.
Okay?
Who was it?
You, Joe.
the post. What is the post show? I almost
Hey, he did it.
I'm gonna allow it because he caught himself before he said the whole thing. What is the post show is correct. For fans that don't know what we're talking about, we do this at the end of almost like most of our episodes, so please listen to them. They're pretty funny, and we might have one at the end of this for all we know. So it's always worth listening, at least through Sam Smith's sweet end song before we get to the post show. So why not? Just give it a listen.
I like the idea that until now, nobody has ever heard the post show. They always just tune out as soon as the music comes on.
Hours
I don't like
of our
that idea
podcast
at all.
just wasted. Well, one time we did a post show, and then we did a post show, and then we did a post show, and we just kept going. That was a great episode.
It was a great episode. I don't remember what the game was, but I remember the post show.
I don't think I was on that episode, actually. I remember hearing it, but I don't think I was on that. That's what made it great, I'm sure.
I'm sure that's what made it great. Okay, so, Sean, don't worry. You're not out yet.
Oh, I know.
Okay, you do have a chance here, but Joe picks the categories. So, Joe?
I am 8-bit for 200.
We did it.
It's not.
God
it doesn't
damn it.
exist.
What's left?
I love the contemplation, though, too. Of like,
Because
100,
I can't see
400,
what we've
and
done.
500.
I'll do 400.
In Kung Fu, you have to work your way through 5 stages if you want to save this character, who happens to be your girlfriend. Legend has it, if you beat the game 50 times, you can play as her.
No, I can't risk it.
Okay. We're looking for, who is Sylvia?
Sylvia!
Yes. I knew it was I knew as soon as I heard it, I would know it, but couldn't come up with
And
it.
you'll remember that that is not true. Do not try to beat Kung Fu 50 times. It will not work, and if you want to play as Sylvia, someone did make a ROM hack that you can play on a legal card even, if you patch it correctly, to play as Sylvia, and nothing else has changed.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't answer that because I thought it was Maria.
Oh, Maria is Shadow the Hedgehog's girlfriend. You're still stuck on our April Fool's joke.
What April
What
Fool's
April
joke?
Fool's
We didn't
joke?
do an April Fool's joke.
Absolutely. I don't know what I'm talking about. Joe?
I'll do I am 8-bit for 500.
The subtitle of the only video game sequel that has had both its games appear on the NES so far. To make matters more confusing, the subtitle was the only title in the arcade release.
Beep.
Sean?
Gradius. Well, what is Gradius 2? No.
Ooh.
Oh, god damn it.
So, you're
Oh, I messed up so bad there.
it's okay. Your heart was in the right place.
I know.
Unfortunately, Life Force cannot be considered the Gradius
Gradius
sequel
2.
because it wasn't in the in the arcade and stuff like that. It was not. Gradius 2 is a separate release from Life Force.
Yes.
So we were looking for Ikari Warriors
Yes.
1 and 2, and the correct answer would be, what is Victory Road?
All right.
Gosh darn it.
The only question I decided to make near impossible.
Well, because I thought it was something with Gradius also, but I couldn't remember what like the subtitle would be. But yeah, I totally forgot about Victory Road.
All right, this leaves one thing left, and that is I am 8-bit for 100. So here is the question. If you want to defeat Dracula in this game, you'll need more than just garlic. Perhaps a whip would be best.
Beep.
Sean?
What is Castlevania?
So boring, right? Like,
Yeah.
I tried to think of like what would be like such a stupid question for a measly 100 points, and I almost went with something from Mario, but I thought that was like insulting. Like that was too easy.
Yeah. All right, so like I could still come back if I do the final Jeopardy, right?
Correct. You could tie with Joe. So Joe has 2,400. You have 1,200. So Joe must theoretically bet $1
Yes.
unless he wants to call it a tie. So we will be right back with Final Jeopardy. All right, and we're back, and first we have to handle the wagers here, so I will give that the category is game designers.
All right.
All right, so please submit your the amount you're willing to gamble. They never say gamble on Jeopardy, though, but it is essentially gambling, right?
It really is.
I suppose. Wager. Gamble.
Yeah, they do say wager, that's true.
It's just the dirtier word for wager.
The question is, so far on the NES, this game designer has been responsible for Wrecking Crew, Kid Icarus, Gumshoe, Balloon Fight, and most notably, Metroid. You have 30 seconds. And that is time.
I think I lost. I think I just lost it all, folks.
Did you submit an answer, Joe?
I didn't. I couldn't think of it.
Okay, here we go. Once again, the question was, so far on the NES, this game designer has been responsible for Wrecking Crew, Kid Icarus, Gumshoe, Balloon Fight, and most notably, Metroid. Sean, you you submitted who is Hideo Kojima. You'll note that
Go ahead.
Metal Gear was not on the list here.
Oh, man. Oh.
And therefore it could not possibly be Kojima, but we appreciate an answer.
And that was my entire 1,200.
Yes, you wagered your entire 1,200. And now for Joe. Joe, you said, who is Konami?
Very late. And I also didn't say who is.
Okay. Who is Konami? And that is not correct either, but you only wagered $1. So you will be today's champion with $23.99 as your total.
Congratulations, Joe.
Thank you.
The correct answer, by the way, we only needed a last name. We don't need the first name, but the correct answer is, who is Yoshio Sakamoto?
Yes, I was going to be my second, that was my second place answer.
You will remember Sakamoto is the one who just gives the most absurd answers on video game development. He says things like, well, we wanted this to be fun, so we made a video game.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
He doesn't, clue anybody into the development process. He talks about, when I was designing Metroid, I thought about caves.
Is he not the one that, fell off his bike on the way to work one day? Or was that somebody else?
I knew that this would happen, so I'm glad you brought it up. See, what happened is that was the whole story of Kid Icarus, was those two guys were, left alone to make Kid Icarus, and nobody remembers their names, and then Sakamoto comes in with his entire team after they're, finished with Metroid, and they look at Kid Icarus and they're like, what? What is this? And then they fix the game and finish it, and the two guys who, not only did he fall on his bike on his way to work, but then he had to leave his honeymoon to come back to work on the game.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Oh, my gosh. So this has been nostalgia, but we do have to remember the priority of the show, which is coming up with an essential games list. And so right now, let's do that and decide if Jeopardy is an essential NES game. Sean?
Well, I will say that this is the best version of Jeopardy that can exist on the NES. It basically copies everything that it needs to in a way that sort of works for a video game. But that being said, the max potential for that kind of game is well below an essential game, for the essential games list. Jeopardy, even if it were the perfect Jeopardy game, would never be an essential game. So it'd be like that sometimes.
Okay, well said. I think we should put that as the banner quote for our Essential Games list. It be like that sometimes. Joe, what are your thoughts?
I'll just lead off with saying that I also will not be voting this essential for similar reasons. I mean, it's still just Jeopardy. It's exactly what you kind of expect from Jeopardy. I'm sure that later consoles can do things like slightly better. I can't imagine it getting like too much better. But I do want to say that I thought this game was going to be atrociously boring. And maybe when you play by yourself, it's not particularly fun. But like, hey, it functions. It works. If you want to have a trivia like contest, a game of Jeopardy with a friend, I mean, it works surprisingly well. And there are a lot of questions, so I feel like you can play for quite a bit. But yeah, it just doesn't really hit anything that grand. It's still just Jeopardy, so I'm not voting it essential.
Well said, well said. And I think that, in 1988, this offered a lot for people who wanted to play this, but I also know that for many people, Jeopardy is a chore to watch, let alone play. So I don't think this belongs on the Essential Games list because it's definitely not like what people think of like peak video games, let alone peak game shows. Who wants to be a millionaire, right? Like that. Now that's a game that has like stakes and thrills. That said, what's interesting here is that there's really nothing I would fault on this game. It pretty much gets everything right in terms of Jeopardy with the, for the limitations of the NES. It's just that I'm not personally looking forward to playing the other two versions that Rare makes, the 25th anniversary and the Junior Edition. So why would I put this one on the Essential Games list if I'm not looking forward to even playing them again?
Yeah. I will say, though, that as a good, I don't even know if it's good, but as a memorable video game show experience, you should seek out Who Wants to Beat Up a Millionaire on the Dreamcast.
That's a real game?
That is a real game.
I have to find that.
You do like, there's a mini game where you end up beating up like your opponent's avatar. It's so goofy.
I just found it. That is crazy. That is crazy. Thank you for this, Sean. This will go in the show notes for sure. That's really all the time we have for this episode of Nostalgia. Join us next time when we're playing something else, because we always do. We just keep moving forward in the game of life, which is another board game, but not game show, so I shouldn't have said another. Guys, any other thoughts?
Well, thanks for putting together that game. That was well done, and it was a fun game, so we appreciate
Thank you. Anything for the fans and you, Joe. Sean, you should submit requests 3 to 5 days in advance to see if they will be granted.
I'll see what I can do.
All right, and we will talk to you guys next week. Remember to tell people about the show. Remember to tell yourself to listen to the show. It's important. Right now, even though most of the world is shut down, podcast listening is down. And we need you guys to listen to these episodes if you want us to keep making them. So please do that. Don't think that just because you're not commuting somewhere that you can't listen. You can listen whenever you want.
I would say that if you really wanted to simulate your day-to-day from the before time, just sit in a dark room and just sort of pretend that you're going to work. It's not that difficult.
Yes, and I should also note that Nostalgia Cast is doing just fine. You don't have to worry about us. We are great.